Gabrielle Thompson's hands trembled as she pushed through the heavy wooden door, her breath coming in short gasps. The church was massive, all soaring ceilings and stained glass windows that cast colored light across marble floors. She ducked inside to escape the rain, but more than that, to escape the crushing weight of the eviction notice folded in her purse and the termination letter that had arrived that morning. She needed to talk to someone. Anyone. A priest would listen without judgment, wouldn't they? The corridor stretched before her, lined with doors. Music swelled from somewhere deeper in the building, the kind of classical piece that spoke of wealth and ceremony. Gabrielle barely registered it. She was drowning in her own thoughts, in the mathematics of impossibility. 3 days until eviction, 0 job prospects, and a savings account that had hit negative numbers 2 weeks ago. A door stood ajar to her left, a small wooden booth barely visible in the dim hallway. The confessional. She'd been raised Baptist, not Catholic, but desperation made denominations irrelevant. She slipped inside, pulling the door shut behind her. The space was tiny, barely large enough to sit. A wooden screen separated her from the other side. Through it, she could make out the shadow of someone already there. Father, Her voice cracked. I need help. I don't know what to do anymore. Silence greeted her words. Then a male voice, younger than she expected, tight with tension. I'm not a priest. Gabrielle froze. Through the screen she could now see more clearly. The man on the other side wasn't wearing clerical robes. He wore a tuxedo, expensive by the look of it, with a bow tie hanging loose around his neck. His hair was dark, slightly disheveled, and even in shadow she could see the strain on his face. Oh my God, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I thought this was... No, wait. His hand pressed against the screen between them. Don't go. Please. Something in his voice stopped her retreat. Desperation. The same flavor of it that coated her own throat. Are you hiding? She asked. Pause. Then, incredibly, a soft laugh. Yes I am. From my wedding, actually. It's happening right now. In the chapel. He gestured vaguely toward where the music was playing. I'm supposed to be standing at the altar in about 10 minutes. Gabrielle's mind reeled. You're the groom? Benjamin Hartwell. Ben. He leaned closer to the screen. And I can't do it. I can't marry her. We don't love each other. It's a business arrangement, pure and simple. Our families want it. The companies want it. The shareholders want it. But I don't want it. The words tumbled out of him like a confession, which Gabrielle supposed they were. Just not to a priest. Why did you agree to it then? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Pressure. Expectations. The path of least resistance. Benjamin ran his hand through his hair. But standing in that dressing room, looking at myself in the mirror, knowing I was about to promise forever to someone who looks at me like a stock portfolio, I couldn't breathe. So I ran. I saw this booth and I just hid. Gabrielle should leave. This was clearly none of her business. This man was a stranger having a crisis that existed in a tax bracket so far above her own they might as well be different species. But something kept her in place. Maybe it was the raw honesty in his voice. Maybe it was recognition, the way his trapped feeling echoed her own. I came here to talk to a priest too, she heard herself say. I lost my job today. Layoffs. And I have an eviction notice. 3 days. I have nowhere to go and no way to pay rent even if I could stay. I'm sorry, Benjamin said, and he sounded like he meant it. That's terrible. It's life, Gabrielle replied, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Things fall apart sometimes. We just have to figure out how to pick up the pieces. Do we though? The question was soft. Pick them up, I mean. Or do we sometimes get to choose different pieces entirely? Before Gabrielle could answer, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Multiple sets moving fast. Mr. Hartwell? A woman's voice, sharp with stress. Benjamin? Where are you? The ceremony should have started 5 minutes ago. The wedding coordinator? Benjamin whispered. They're looking for me. Gabrielle watched his shadow through the screen. He'd pressed himself back against the wall of the booth, trying to become invisible. The footsteps grew closer. She made a decision in that instant. Maybe it was crazy. Maybe it was the universe's way of letting her do one good thing before her life completely fell apart. Stay quiet, she whispered to Benjamin. Then she pushed open the door of her side of the confessional and stepped into the corridor. 3 people stood there, all wearing earpieces and carrying clipboards. The woman in front, tall with silver hair, spotted Gabrielle immediately. Oh, excuse me, have you seen a man in a tuxedo? Tall dark hair? Gabrielle put on her most helpful expression. A tuxedo? At a wedding? There are dozens of men in tuxedos here. This one would have looked distressed. Lost maybe. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you a guest? I'm meeting someone, Gabrielle said, which was technically true in the strangest possible way. I've been waiting in the lobby. Lots of people there, all dressed formally. Maybe your missing groom is in the crowd. The woman exchanged glances with her colleagues. The lobby. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? She turned on her heel, the others following. Check every face. We need him at that altar now. They disappeared around the corner, voices fading. Gabrielle waited, counting to 30 before slipping back into the confessional booth. Benjamin was staring at her through the screen, his expression stunned. You just lied to a wedding coordinator. I helped someone who needed help, Gabrielle corrected. There's a difference. Why? The question was simple, genuine. You don't know me. Gabrielle settled back onto the small bench. You were hiding in a confessional booth instead of marrying someone you don't love. That takes a certain kind of courage. Or desperation. Maybe both. I understand both of those things right now. Silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Outside, she could hear the wedding coordinator's voice echoing through some other part of the building, calling Benjamin's name with increasing agitation. What's your name? Benjamin asked quietly. Gabrielle. Gabrielle Thompson. Gabrielle. He said it slowly like he was testing the weight of it. Thank you. For that. For helping me. You're welcome. Can I? He hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. When you walked in here, when you thought I was a priest, what were you going to ask for? Gabrielle closed her eyes. The truth felt too heavy, too raw. But Benjamin had just shared his most vulnerable moment with her. It seemed only fair to return the honesty. Hope, she whispered. I was going to ask for hope. Some sign that things could get better. That I wasn't alone in all of this. When she opened her eyes, Benjamin was closer to the screen, his face clearer now. He was handsome in that polished way wealthy people often were, but his eyes held something real. Something that said he understood exactly what she meant. What if I told you, he said slowly, that I think we just gave that to each other? The organ music swelled suddenly, the wedding march beginning. In the chapel, hundreds of guests would be standing, waiting for a groom who wasn't going to appear. They're starting without you, Gabrielle observed. Good. Benjamin's jaw set with determination. Let them. I'm done living my life for other people's expectations. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But first, I need to get out of this church without anyone seeing me. He looked at her through the screen. I don't suppose you'd be willing to help with that too? Gabrielle thought about her empty apartment, the bills she couldn't pay, the future that looked like nothing but closed doors. Then she thought about this strange man hiding in a confessional booth, choosing honesty over obligation. Sometimes the right choice was the one that made no logical sense. I'll help you, she said. But we need to move fast. Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have helped a stranger escape their own wedding? What would you do if you were in Gabrielle's shoes? Your engagement helps stories like this reach more readers who need a reminder that unexpected kindness can change everything. Benjamin pushed open his side of the confessional, and for the first time, Gabrielle saw him fully. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with the kind of presence that came from a lifetime of confidence. But right now that confidence was fraying at the edges. His tuxedo jacket was unbuttoned, the flower pinned to his lapel slightly crushed. We can't stay here, he said, glancing down the corridor. They'll circle back. Gabrielle stepped out of her side. Next to him, she felt suddenly aware of her thrift store dress, rain damp at the hem, her shoes that she'd owned for 3 years because new ones weren't in the budget. But Benjamin didn't seem to notice or care. His attention was on the hallway, calculating. There's a side entrance, Gabrielle said, remembering her path in. Near the administrative offices. Less foot traffic. You know this church? I passed it every day going to work. Used to work, she corrected herself. The words still stung. Benjamin looked at her properly, then really looked at her. His eyes were gray, she noticed, stormy and intelligent. I'm sorry. About your job. You said it was layoffs. The whole department. Budget cuts. Gabrielle shrugged, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. 10 years of loyalty, gone in a 5-minute meeting. That's not right. Neither is forcing yourself to marry someone you don't love, Gabrielle countered. So I guess we're both dealing with things that aren't right. A ghost of a smile crossed Benjamin's face. Fair point. The wedding march cut off abruptly, replaced by confused murmuring that echoed through the building. Someone, probably the officiant, would be realizing by now that the groom wasn't simply delayed. "We need to go," Benjamin said urgently. "Now." They moved quickly but carefully, Gabrielle leading the way through corridors she vaguely remembered. The church was a maze of hallways, some leading to classrooms, others to offices or storage spaces. They passed a room full of choir robes, another stacked with folding chairs. "Wait," Benjamin said suddenly, pulling her into an alcove as voices approached. They pressed back against the wall, close enough that Gabrielle could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Her heart hammered, but not entirely from fear of being caught. There was something surreal about this whole situation, something that made her feel more alive than she had in months. Two staff members passed by, discussing the missing groom in hushed, scandalized tones. "They're saying he got cold feet. I heard his fiancée is furious. Can you imagine? All those guests, all that money?" Their voices faded. Benjamin let out a breath he'd been holding. "Helen won't be furious. Inconvenienced, maybe. Embarrassed, definitely. But not furious. That would require caring about me as a person, not just a merger." "That's her name? Helen?" "Helen Bradford. Her family owns Bradford Industries. My family owns Hartwell Enterprises. Together, we'd control about 40% of the commercial real estate market on the East Coast." He said it flatly, like reciting a stock report. "That's what our marriage was supposed to be. A corporate consolidation." Gabrielle peeked around the corner. The hallway was clear. They continued moving, taking a turn toward what she hoped was the administrative wing. "Did you ever tell her you didn't want to marry her?" "Multiple times. She said I was being emotional. That I'd adjust." Benjamin's voice went tight. "She actually used the word, adjust, like I was a thermostat." Despite everything, Gabrielle found herself smiling. "You deserve better than being someone's room temperature preference." "So do you?" "Better than a company that throws away a decade of dedication." They found themselves at a stairwell, service stairs that looked rarely used. Gabrielle led them down, their footsteps echoing in the concrete space. When they reached the bottom, a door marked, "Emergency Exit Only" stood before them. "This will set off an alarm," she warned. Benjamin considered for half a second. "I'm already the scandal of the century. What's one more alarm?" He pushed the door open. The sound was deafening, a shrieking wail that immediately brought shouts from elsewhere in the building. But they were outside now in an alley behind the church. Rain had started again, light but steady. "My car is in the main parking lot," Benjamin said, rain already darkening his shoulders. "With a few hundred wedding guests between here and there." Gabrielle thought fast. "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks that way. We can wait there until things calm down." They ran, not the graceful movie kind of running but the real kind, where rain splashes up from puddles and you're just hoping not to trip. Gabrielle's shoes, already worn, protested against the wet pavement. Benjamin, in his polished dress shoes, wasn't doing much better. The coffee shop was blessedly empty, just a bored barista scrolling through their phone. They collapsed into a corner booth, both breathing hard. "2 coffees," Benjamin called to the barista, then looked at Gabrielle. "Unless you want something else?" "Coffee is perfect." They sat in silence while the barista prepared their drinks, the alarm from the church now distant but still audible. When the coffees arrived, Benjamin wrapped his hands around the cup like it could anchor him to something real. "I should call someone," he said, but made no move for his phone. "Tell them I'm okay. That I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere." "Are you okay?" Gabrielle asked. Benjamin looked up, surprised by the question. "I don't know. I think so. I blew up my entire life. My family is going to be furious. The media is going to have a field day. Helen's family will probably sue for breach of contract or something. But you're free." "Yeah." He said it slowly, testing the word. "I guess I am." Gabrielle sipped her coffee, hot and bitter and perfect. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Life's too short to spend it being someone else's business deal." "Is that why you helped me?" "Moral support for people making dramatic life changes." "I helped you because you looked like I felt," Gabrielle admitted. "Trapped. Desperate. Looking for an exit that might not exist." Benjamin studied her over his coffee cup. "And now? How do you feel now?" Gabrielle considered the question honestly. She was still jobless. Still facing eviction. Still utterly broke. But sitting here in this warm coffee shop with a stranger who'd just escaped his own wedding, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Like maybe exits do exist," she said softly. "We just have to be brave enough to take them." Even when we don't know where they lead? Especially then. The rain picked up outside, drumming against the windows. The church alarm finally went silent. In the quiet that followed, Benjamin pulled out his phone. I really should call my assistant. She's probably having a breakdown. He scrolled through what looked like dozens of missed calls and messages. Everyone's freaking out. Are you going to tell them where you are? Not yet. He set the phone face down on the table. Let them wonder a little longer. Is that terrible? It's human, Gabrielle said. Benjamin smiled, genuine this time. You're very wise for someone I met in a confessional booth. You're very calm for someone who just ran away from their own wedding. I don't feel calm. I feel terrified. But also, he paused, searching for the word. Lighter. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long I forgot what it felt like to put it down. Gabrielle understood that feeling intimately. How many days had she dragged herself to a job that slowly crushed her spirit, telling herself it was fine, it was responsible, it was what adults did. Can I ask you something? Benjamin said. Sure. What were you planning to do? After the eviction? Where were you going to go? The question pierced straight to her greatest fear. I don't know. I have a friend who might let me crash on her couch for a while. But she has 3 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. There's not really room. Family? My mom passed 5 years ago. No siblings. My dad remarried and moved to Florida. We're not close. The words came out matter-of-fact, but they hurt. Family was supposed to be a safety net, not another reminder of what you didn't have. Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Come stay with me. Gabrielle's head snapped up. What? I have a penthouse. Private, secure. My fiancé, ex-fiancé, doesn't even know about it. I bought it as an escape, somewhere I could go when the family pressure got too intense. There are 3 bedrooms. You can take one until you figure things out. I can't do that. Why not? Because I don't know you. Because it's too much. Because... Gabrielle fumbled for words. People don't just offer strangers places to live. People also don't help strangers escape their weddings, Benjamin countered. But you did. You could have walked away. You could have told the coordinator exactly where I was. Instead, you lied for me, you helped me plan an escape route, and you ran through the rain so I wouldn't have to face something I wasn't ready for. He leaned forward. Let me return the favor. Please. I have the space. You need the space. It's simple. Nothing about this is simple. Maybe that's the point. Benjamin's voice was earnest, almost pleading. Maybe simple is overrated. Maybe sometimes the right thing is the complicated thing, the unexpected thing. Gabrielle wanted to say no. Every practical instinct she had screamed that this was crazy, that accepting help from a man she'd known for less than an hour was the height of foolishness. But then she thought about the eviction notice. The empty bank account. The job applications that would take weeks to process even if anyone responded. The couch at her friend's overcrowded apartment, if that was even still an option. And she thought about Benjamin's words in the confessional. What if I told you that I think we just gave that to each other? Hope. Sometimes the brave choice was accepting help when it was offered. Okay, she whispered. Okay. But just until I find something else. A few days, maybe a week. As long as you need, Benjamin said, relief clear on his face. Thank you. I should be thanking you. Then we're even. They finished their coffee as the rain continued. Outside the world went on. Somewhere, a wedding was being cancelled, families were arguing, and gossip was spreading. But in this small corner, in this warm booth, 2 people who'd started the day feeling trapped had found something neither of them expected. A beginning. The coffee shop had become their temporary refuge, but they couldn't hide forever. Benjamin's phone kept buzzing with increasing urgency, each vibration a reminder that reality was waiting outside. We should probably get you home, Benjamin said, glancing at the darkening sky. Or rather, to what will be your home for now. But first, I need to retrieve my car without being ambushed by every wedding guest currently hunting for me. Gabrielle couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. How does one typically retrieve a vehicle after fleeing one's own wedding? Very carefully. Benjamin studied his phone screen, scrolling through messages. My assistant Lauren is actually being helpful. She's offering to create a distraction. What kind of distraction? Benjamin's lips quirked. She's going to tell my mother she saw me heading to the airport. Should buy us 20 minutes before they realize it's a diversion. Your assistant is helping you escape? Lauren has been with me for 6 years. She's seen every family meeting, every board discussion about this merger. She knew how much I hated it. He typed a quick response. She's also the only person in my life who asks how I'm feeling instead of what I'm going to do about the stock price. Gabrielle watched him communicate with this woman who clearly cared about him. It reminded her that even in his world of penthouses and arranged marriages, Benjamin had people who saw him as a person, not a portfolio. "All right," Benjamin announced, pocketing his phone. "Lauren says the coast is clear. We have a window." They left the coffee shop and walked quickly through streets now slick with rain. The church parking lot was still full, but most people had moved inside or to the reception venue, probably trying to salvage something of the day. Benjamin's car turned out to be a sleek black sedan, expensive but not ostentatious. He clicked the key fob and they both slid inside, grateful to be out of the rain. "Where do you live now?" Benjamin asked, starting the engine. "We should pick up your things." Gabrielle gave him the address, a neighborhood that got quieter and less maintained the farther from downtown they drove. When they pulled up to her building, a squat brick structure with cracked concrete steps, she felt a wave of embarrassment. This was her life, laid bare in all its struggling reality. But Benjamin simply parked and said, "I'll help you carry." Her apartment was on the 3rd floor, and she was painfully aware of every detail as they climbed. The flickering hallway light, the argument echoing from 2B, the water stain on the ceiling. When she unlocked her door, she was glad she'd at least cleaned that morning, some instinct to maintain dignity even when everything was falling apart. "It's small," she said unnecessarily. "It's yours," Benjamin replied, looking around with what seemed like genuine interest. Or it was. Gabrielle moved through the space, gathering essentials. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop, a few books. Each item went into a battered suitcase that had belonged to her mother. She packed the photograph from her nightstand, the one of her and her mom at her college graduation, both of them beaming. Benjamin waited by the door, giving her space but ready to help if needed. When she struggled with a box of keepsakes from the closet, he stepped in without being asked, lifting it easily. "You don't have to," she started. "I want to," he said simply. They made 3 trips to the car, loading her life into the trunk and back seat. It wasn't much, Gabrielle realized. 10 years of adult life fit into 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and a bag of cleaning supplies she'd bought thinking she'd need them here. On their last trip, the building manager emerged from his ground floor unit. He was a heavy-set man who always smelled like cigars, his eyes narrow and calculating. "Miss Thompson. Clearing out early, I see." "I found another place," Gabrielle said, keeping her voice even. "Good. Saves me the trouble of formally evicting you." He looked at Benjamin, taking in the expensive car visible through the open door. "Found yourself a benefactor, did you?" Gabrielle felt anger flash hot in her chest, but Benjamin spoke before she could respond. "I'm her friend," he said, voice cool. "We're helping each other out. Is there a problem?" The building manager's eyes lingered on Benjamin's tuxedo, now wrinkled and rain-spotted but still clearly expensive. "No problem at all. Just make sure you're out completely by Friday." When they were back in the car, Gabrielle let out a shaky breath. "I hate him. He's a small man with a small amount of power who uses it to feel big," Benjamin said, pulling away from the curb. "Trust me, I know the type. They exist at every income level." As they drove toward downtown, toward a part of the city Gabrielle rarely visited, she felt the weight of the day settling over her. She'd woken up that morning expecting to be fired. She'd gone to a church seeking solace. Instead, she'd helped a billionaire escape his wedding and was now moving into his secret penthouse. "This is crazy," she said aloud. "Completely," Benjamin agreed. "Does that mean you want to change your mind?" Gabrielle thought about it honestly. The smart thing would be to thank him politely and find somewhere else, somewhere that made sense. But when in her life had playing it safe actually made things better? "No," she said firmly. "I'm not changing my mind. You offered help and I'm accepting it. Just like you said I should." Benjamin smiled, the first genuine, unguarded smile she'd seen from him. "Good. Because I've been thinking about what you said in the coffee shop. About being brave enough to take exits even when we don't know where they lead." "What about it?" "I think we're about to find out where this one leads." The penthouse was in a building Gabrielle had walked past 100 times but never imagined entering. A doorman nodded at Benjamin like his presence was expected. No surprise at the tuxedo or the rain-soaked woman beside him. The elevator required a key, which Benjamin produced. It rose smoothly, silently, counting floors, 20, 30, 40. When the doors opened, they opened directly into the apartment. Gabrielle stepped into a space that looked nothing like she'd expected. Yes, it was expensive. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city made that clear. But it was also warm, lived in. Books lined built-in shelves. Plants thrived in corners. The furniture looked comfortable rather than just showpiece elegant. "I know it's a lot," Benjamin said, watching her take it in. "But it's never felt like too much. It's always felt like exactly enough space to breathe." He showed her to a guest room, bright and airy with its own bathroom. The bed was queen-sized, covered in a soft green comforter. French doors opened onto a small balcony. "Is this okay?" he asked, suddenly uncertain. "It's perfect," Gabrielle said honestly. "Benjamin, I don't know how to thank you." "You already did. In that confessional booth when you could have walked away but didn't." He leaned against the doorframe. "I'll give you some time to settle in. The kitchen is fully stocked. Help yourself to anything. I need to call my family before they file a missing person report." After he left, Gabrielle sat on the edge of the bed, her reflection visible in the window against the darkening sky. She looked like someone whose life had just taken an impossible turn. She unpacked slowly, hanging her simple dresses in a closet large enough to hold 10 times her wardrobe. She arranged her toiletries in the bathroom, where everything gleamed and smelled faintly of lavender. She set her mother's photograph on the nightstand. In the living room she could hear Benjamin's voice, calm but firm. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. He was holding his ground. An hour later he knocked softly on her door. "Hey, I'm ordering dinner. What do you like?" They ate Thai food on the balcony, the city spread out below them like a carpet of lights. Benjamin had changed into jeans and a sweater, looking more approachable, more real. "How did the calls go?" Gabrielle asked, twirling noodles around her fork. "About as well as expected. My mother is horrified. My father is calculating the business implications. Helen is, according to her assistant, disappointed but understanding, which means she's already talking to lawyers." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. This was my choice." He met her eyes. "For once in my life I chose what I actually wanted." "What do you want?" The question felt bold, maybe too personal. Benjamin considered it seriously. "I want to build things that matter. My company is all acquisitions and mergers, buying and selling properties like they're just numbers on a spreadsheet. But buildings are more than that. They're where people live, work, grow. I want to remember that." He paused. "What about you? What do you want?" Gabrielle thought about the answer she'd given in the confessional, but now, with food in her stomach and safety around her, she could dig deeper. "I want to help people," she said. "When I was a kid, our neighborhood had this community center. After-school programs, job training, just a place where people could go and feel like they mattered. It closed when I was 12. Budget cuts. I've always thought if I ever had the means, I'd open another one. Give back what I was given. That's a good dream." "It's a pipe dream," Gabrielle corrected. "Community centers need funding, property, staff. I can barely pay my own rent." "Couldn't pay your own rent?" Benjamin said gently. Past tense. "That problem is solved now. For now. For as long as you need." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Gabrielle, I know we just met. I know this whole situation is bizarre. But I meant what I said. You helped me today without thinking twice about it. You didn't ask for anything in return. You just helped. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Benjamin said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have seen an opportunity and tried to capitalize on it. You saw a person in trouble and offered kindness. That's rare. Rarer than you think." Gabrielle felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're being too generous." "I'm being honest." He stood, collecting their empty containers. "Get some rest. We can figure out next steps tomorrow." But as Gabrielle lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't quite believe this was real. Somewhere in the city, her old landlord was probably celebrating her departure. Somewhere, Benjamin's family was dealing with the scandal he'd created. And here, in this quiet space high above it all, two strangers who'd found each other in the most unlikely way were discovering that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and the bravest thing you can do is accept it with gratitude. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Jessica. "Girl, where are you? Heard you got laid off. You okay?" Gabrielle smiled and typed back, "Long story. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I'll explain soon." She set the phone aside and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions. But tonight, for the first time in months, she fell asleep feeling something she'd almost forgotten: hope. Morning light flooded Gabrielle's room, bright and insistent. For a moment, she forgot where she was, disoriented by the softness of the mattress and the quality of silence that only came with serious soundproofing. Then memory rushed back. The confessional, the escape, Benjamin's offer. She sat up, checking her phone. 8:47 a.m. 2 missed calls from Jessica and several texts from former co-workers expressing sympathy about the layoffs and curiosity about where she disappeared to. A knock at the door, gentle. "Gabrielle? You awake? Come in." Benjamin entered carrying a tray with coffee, fruit, and pastries that looked too perfect to be real. He'd already showered and dressed, wearing pressed slacks and a blue button-down that made his gray eyes even more striking. "I wasn't sure how you took your coffee, so I brought options." He set the tray on the desk near the window. "There's cream, sugar, honey?" "Black is fine," Gabrielle said, still processing the fact that someone had brought her breakfast in bed. "You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. Plus, I figured we should talk about logistics." Gabrielle wrapped herself in the robe she found hanging in the bathroom, plush and white. She joined Benjamin by the window where the city looked different in daylight, all glass and steel and purpose. "Logistics," she repeated, sipping the coffee. "It was excellent, smooth and rich. My family is going to want answers. The media already has the story, obviously." He pulled out his phone, showing her a gossip site headline, "Hartwell heir flees wedding in dramatic fashion." There was a photo of the church, guests milling in confusion. That was fast. "Scandal travels at the speed of money," Benjamin said dryly. "Anyway, I've been thinking. I need to give everyone an explanation that makes sense. Something that takes the heat off." Gabrielle felt a chill. "You're going to tell them about me?" "No. God, no. Your privacy is yours." Benjamin set down his phone. "But I do need to construct some kind of narrative. And I was hoping, actually, that you might help me figure out what that narrative should be. I'm not really qualified to advise billionaires on scandal management." "Maybe not. But you're honest. That's more valuable than any PR team right now." He sat on the edge of the desk. "What do you think I should say?" Gabrielle considered it carefully. In her old life, she'd navigated office politics, managed difficult personalities, learned when to speak and when to stay silent. Those skills weren't so different from what Benjamin needed now. "Tell them the truth," she said finally. "Not all of it, but the core truth. That you realized you couldn't go through with a loveless marriage. That you needed time to figure out what you actually want. That you're sorry for the disruption but not sorry for the decision." Benjamin listened intently. "Just like that? No spin, no strategy?" People respect honesty more than they respect clever explanations. And frankly, anyone who cares about you should understand why you couldn't marry someone you didn't love. My parents won't see it that way. To them, marriage is another form of business partnership. Love is optional, maybe even counterproductive. Then maybe it's time they learned a different perspective, Gabrielle said gently. Benjamin studied her for a long moment. "How are you so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just someone who's had to make hard choices with no safety net. You learn to see things clearly when there's no one to catch you if you fall." "You have a safety net now," Benjamin said quietly. "For whatever that's worth." The statement hung between them, weighted with meaning Gabrielle wasn't ready to examine. Instead, she picked up a pastry, flaky and dusted with powdered sugar. "These are amazing. There's a bakery 2 blocks away. They make them fresh every morning." Benjamin grabbed one for himself. "I should probably confess something." "Oh no. Another secret." He laughed. "Nothing dramatic. I'm not very good at this. Having someone here, I usually keep this place completely private. You're the first person I've ever invited to stay." "Why did you invite me then?" "Because leaving you to face eviction when I could help felt wrong. And because..." He hesitated. "Because yesterday, hiding in that confessional, I felt less alone than I've felt in years. Even before I knew you were there. Maybe especially after." Gabrielle understood that feeling precisely. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw you as a function, never as a person. "What's your plan for today?" she asked, changing the subject before the emotion got too heavy. "Damage control. I have a meeting with my lawyer at 11, then my parents at 2. Should be a delightful afternoon of recriminations and disappointment." He grimaced. "What about you?" "Job hunting, I guess. Update my resume, search listings. Use the office down the hall. It has a desk, printer, good Wi-Fi." Benjamin stood. "And Gabrielle? Take your time. This isn't a rush situation." After he left for his meetings, Gabrielle explored the penthouse more thoroughly. The office was professional but comfortable, with a window overlooking the downtown corridor. She set up her laptop and started the tedious process of updating her resume. 10 years at the same company, starting as an administrative assistant and working up to operations coordinator. She'd managed budgets, supervised staff, streamlined processes. On paper she looked capable. In reality she felt lost. Her phone rang. "Jessica. Where the hell are you?" her friend demanded without preamble. "I went by your apartment. The manager said you moved out." "I did. Long story. I have time." Gabrielle hesitated. "How did you explain this without sounding either crazy or like you were in danger?" "I met someone. He's helping me out while I figure things out." Pause. "Met someone? Like met someone?" "Not like that. It's complicated. But I'm safe, I promise. In fact, I'm probably safer than I've been in months." "Gabby, you're freaking me out. Is this some kind of situation where I need to call the police?" "No. Jessica, I promise. This is actually a good thing. I'll explain everything soon, but right now I'm okay." "Better than okay." Jessica didn't sound convinced. "Text me every day. If you don't, I'm tracking your phone." "Deal." Gabrielle spent the afternoon applying to jobs, each submission feeling like tossing messages into a void. By 3 o'clock, she'd sent out 15 applications and felt thoroughly demoralized. She found herself wandering the penthouse, studying the details. The bookshelves held an eclectic mix: business texts, classic novels, poetry, even some graphic novels. The kitchen was pristine but clearly used, with spices organized alphabetically and a knife block that looked professional grade. In the living room, photographs sat on a shelf, mostly landscapes and city scenes. But one was different. A younger Benjamin with an older woman, both laughing at something off camera. The woman had kind eyes and graying hair. "That's my grandmother," Benjamin's voice said behind her. She hadn't heard him come in. Gabrielle turned. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, hair slightly mussed. "Sorry? I wasn't snooping, just..." "It's fine. You live here now. It's your space too." He collapsed onto the couch. "That photo was taken about 6 months before she passed. She was the only person in my family who ever asked what I wanted to do with my life instead of telling me what I should do." "She sounds wonderful." "She was." Benjamin rubbed his face. "My meetings went about as terribly as expected. My lawyer says Helen's family is demanding I reimburse them for wedding expenses. My parents are threatening to cut me out of company decisions if I don't fix this." "Can they do that? Legally? It's complicated. Emotionally?" "Absolutely." He looked up at her. "I don't regret it though. Running. Choosing myself for once. I just wish it didn't have to hurt so many people." Gabrielle sat beside him, leaving respectful space between them. "You didn't hurt them. You disappointed them. There's a difference. Their hurt comes from their expectations, not your actions." "That's a generous way to look at it." "It's a true way to look at it." She thought about her own father, who'd been disappointed when she chose a practical career over graduate school, disappointed again when she didn't move to Florida after her mother died. People who love you want you to be happy. People who just want something from you get angry when you stop providing it. Figure out which category your parents fall into. Benjamin considered that. "You know what I realized today? When I was sitting in that lawyer's office, listening to all the ways I've made my life harder. I wasn't sorry. Not for a single second. And that's when I knew I'd made the right choice." "Good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun move across the floor. Eventually, Benjamin ordered dinner, Chinese food this time, and they ate while watching a nature documentary about penguins. It was so normal, so domestic, that Gabrielle almost forgot this wasn't her real life. But it was her life, at least for now. And as Benjamin fell asleep on the couch during the second documentary, his face finally relaxed and peaceful, Gabrielle thought maybe that was enough. Maybe borrowed safety was still safety. Maybe temporary refuge was still refuge. She found a blanket and draped it over him gently, then retreated to her room. Tomorrow would bring more job applications, more uncertainty. But tonight she was warm, fed, and safe. That was more than she'd had yesterday. 3 days at the penthouse settled into an unexpected rhythm. Gabrielle would wake early, spend mornings job hunting, afternoons reading from Benjamin's extensive library. Benjamin would leave for meetings, return looking increasingly stressed, and they'd have dinner together, conversations ranging from philosophy to terrible reality TV. It was strange and comfortable all at once. On the 4th morning, Gabrielle woke to find her photo trending on social media. Someone had spotted her at a restaurant with Benjamin 2 nights ago. The caption read, "Mystery woman with runaway groom?" She stared at her phone, heart racing. In the photo she was laughing at something Benjamin had said, her face animated and unguarded. She looked happy. She also looked very clearly like someone who'd been caught in the orbit of a scandal. Benjamin knocked and entered without waiting for an answer, his own phone in hand. "You've seen it? How did they even know to look for me? Someone at the restaurant must have recognized me and started recording." He sat heavily on her bed. "I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful. It's not your fault." "It kind of is." Benjamin ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she'd learned meant he was truly worried. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. The media will start digging, trying to figure out who you are, inventing stories about us." Gabrielle's stomach nodded. "What kind of stories?" "That you're the reason I left Helen. That we've been having an affair. That you're a gold digger who seduced me." He looked miserable. "None of it true, but truth doesn't matter in these situations. So what do we do?" Benjamin was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with something. Finally he said, "I have an idea. But you're absolutely allowed to say no. In fact, you should probably say no because it's objectively crazy." "Tell me. What if we leaned into it? Not the affair story but the relationship story. What if we told everyone we're together? Publicly. That way, it explains why I left the wedding, it gives the media a narrative they can work with, and it takes some of the heat off both of us." Gabrielle processed this. "You want us to fake date?" "I want us to real date," Benjamin corrected, then immediately backtracked. No, I meant fake. Obviously fake. God, I'm terrible at this." Despite the weirdness of the situation, Gabrielle smiled. "Take a breath. Explain it properly." Benjamin stood, pacing the room. "Here's the thing. My family is pressuring me to either go back to Helen or explain myself. The media is creating wild theories. And meanwhile, you're stuck in this penthouse hiding from photographers who want to turn you into a villain. Okay. But if we present a united front, if we say we met, we fell for each other, and yes it was complicated timing but sometimes life is complicated, then we control the story. Plus." He stopped pacing, facing her directly. "Plus, there's something in it for you beyond just managing scandal." "What?" "You told me about your dream. The community center. What if I funded it?" Gabrielle's breath caught. "What?" "I'm serious. You pretend to be my girlfriend for, let's say, 3 months. Long enough to make it believable that we tried and it didn't work out. You attend events with me, we do the photo ops, we make it look real. In exchange, I fund your community center. Fully. Property, staff, programs, everything." "Benjamin, that's..." She couldn't find words. "That's millions of dollars. I have millions of dollars. And honestly, funding something that actually helps people sounds way better than another corporate acquisition." He sat back down, earnest and intense. "You'd be doing me a favor. This gives me a reason to keep my family at bay, time to figure out what I actually want from life. And it gives you the means to make your dream real." Gabrielle's mind raced. It was crazy. It was manipulative. It was using each other for mutual benefit. It was also the answer to a prayer she'd been too scared to voice. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could hire an actress, someone experienced with this kind of thing." "Because you're real," Benjamin said simply. "These past few days talking to you, spending time with you, it's been the first time in years I've felt like I could just be myself. Not Benjamin Hartwell, heir to Hartwell Enterprises. Just Ben, a guy who likes bad documentaries and overthinks everything. I like the documentaries too. See? We're practically perfect for each other." He smiled, but it faded quickly. "Gabrielle, I'm not trying to pressure you. If you say no, that's completely fine. You can stay here as long as you need, no strings attached. But if you say yes, I promise I'll make good on every part of the deal." Gabrielle stood and walked to the window. Below, the city went about its business, indifferent to the strange negotiation happening in this penthouse. She thought about all the rules she'd been raised with. Don't take handouts, don't trust easy solutions, don't believe in fairy tales. But she also thought about the community center, about kids who needed a safe place after school, about adults who needed job training and second chances. She thought about being able to create something that mattered, something that would outlast her. "If I say yes," she began slowly, "I need some ground rules." Benjamin's expression shifted to cautious hope. "Name them." 1. We're honest with each other. No real lying, even if we're lying to everyone else. 2. I get input on the community center. Location, programs, all of it. 3. When this ends, we end it cleanly. No drama, no public blame. We just say it didn't work out. Done, done, and done. And 4. She turned to face him. "We don't let this get weird. We're friends helping each other out. Nothing more." Something flickered across Benjamin's face too quickly to interpret. "Nothing more," he agreed. So is that a yes? Gabrielle took a deep breath. Every sensible bone in her body screamed that this was a mistake. But she'd been sensible her whole life, and where had it gotten her? Laid off and nearly homeless. Yes, she said. I'll do it. Benjamin's face split into a genuine grin. Really? Really? On one condition, we start right now. No more hiding in the penthouse. If we're doing this, we do it properly. What did you have in mind? Gabrielle pulled out her phone, scrolling through the gossip sites still speculating about the mystery woman. We go shopping. Very publicly. We get coffee. We act like a couple who has nothing to hide. You want to feed the beast? I want to control the beast, Gabrielle corrected. Right now they're making up stories. Let's give them the truth instead. Or at least our version of it. Benjamin stood, energy returning to his posture. Okay. But first we need to get you ready for the spotlight. Which means shopping for real, not just for show. An hour later, they were in a boutique so expensive Gabrielle was afraid to touch anything. The sales associate, a sharp-eyed woman named Rita, took one look at Benjamin and immediately understood the assignment. Bright colors, Benjamin had said. Nothing too formal. She should look like herself, just elevated. What followed was 2 hours of trying on clothes Gabrielle never imagined wearing. Rita had an eye for what worked, pulling pieces that were bold without being loud, elegant without being stuffy. This one, Rita said, holding up a dress in deep maroon. Try it. Gabrielle emerged from the dressing room feeling transformed. The dress fit perfectly, the color making her skin glow. That's the one, Benjamin said, his voice slightly strained. It's not too much? It's perfect. They left the boutique with 6 bags full of clothes, shoes, and accessories. Gabrielle had tried to limit the selections, but Benjamin had waved off her concerns. Consider it part of the job, he'd said. Next, they went to a trendy coffee shop, the kind that had a line out the door and Instagram-worthy latte art. Several people noticed them immediately, phones appearing to snap covert photos. Ready? Benjamin whispered. As I'll ever be. They ordered coffee and found a table by the window, deliberately visible. Benjamin reached across and took her hand, and even though it was staged, even though this was all part of the performance, Gabrielle felt a flutter of something in her chest. Smile? He murmured. Like I just said something charming. Say something charming then, she countered. You look beautiful. That dress is going to be on every gossip site by tonight. That's not charming. That's strategy. Can't it be both? They stayed for an hour, talking and laughing, playing their roles perfectly. When they finally left, walking hand in hand down the street, Gabrielle felt the weight of watching eyes. Back at the penthouse, Benjamin's phone exploded with notifications. Photos of them were already circulating, headlines speculating about the mystery woman who'd captured the runaway groom's heart. They're calling me radiant, Gabrielle said, scrolling through comments. That's new. They're not wrong. Benjamin was reading something on his laptop. My publicist just emailed. She wants to release an official statement confirming our relationship. Already? Strike while the iron is hot. If we confirm it now, we control the narrative from the start. He looked up. What do you want the statement to say? Gabrielle thought carefully. Keep it simple. Benjamin and Gabrielle met recently and have begun dating. They appreciate privacy as they navigate this new relationship. Perfect. Benjamin typed it out, sent it off. Done. As of now, we're officially a couple. That night, they celebrated with takeout and wine on the balcony. The city lights twinkled below them, and for a moment, Gabrielle let herself forget this was all pretend. Thank you, she said quietly. For this opportunity. For believing my dream was worth funding. Thank you for saving me from the biggest mistake of my life, Benjamin replied. I think this might be the beginning of something good. For both of us. They clinked glasses, sealing their unlikely partnership. And as Gabrielle looked at Benjamin, his face open and hopeful in the glow of the city, she wondered if keeping their rule about not letting things get weird was going to be harder than she'd anticipated. But that was a problem for another day. Tonight, she had a future to look forward to, dreams about to become reality, and a strange new life that felt more right than anything she'd planned for herself. Sometimes the best things came from the most unexpected places. If this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what you think Gabrielle should name her community center. Your support helps us bring more uplifting stories to readers who need them. The next 2 weeks transformed Gabrielle's life in ways she couldn't have imagined. Benjamin's publicist, a sharp woman named Patricia who wore exclusively power suits, gave her a crash course in media management. Never say, no comment, Patricia instructed during one of their sessions. It makes you look guilty. Instead, smile and say something vague but pleasant. We're enjoying getting to know each other works for everything. They attended their first official event together a week after going public. A charity gala for children's literacy. Gabrielle wore a red dress that Patricia had insisted on, fitted at the waist and flowing at the hem. Benjamin wore a classic tuxedo, and when he first saw her, he'd stopped mid-sentence. You look incredible, he'd said, and the appreciation in his eyes had seemed a little too real. The gala was held in a historic hotel ballroom, all crystal chandeliers and marble columns. Gabrielle had never seen so many wealthy people in one place, women dripping with jewelry that cost more than her entire former annual salary, men discussing deals in casual tones that involved millions. Benjamin kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through introductions. Senator Williams, this is Gabrielle Thompson. Gabrielle, the senator is on the board of the Literacy Foundation. Lovely to meet you, Gabrielle said, extending her hand. The senator smiled warmly. Benjamin speaks highly of you. Tell me, what do you do? This was the tricky part. They'd prepared a story. Gabrielle was an operations consultant on a career break, which was technically true if you counted being laid off as a career break. I'm currently working on a community development project, she said smoothly. Benjamin has been kind enough to support the vision. How wonderful. We need more people willing to invest in community initiatives. The senator squeezed her hand. I hope we'll see more of you at these events. As they moved through the crowd, Benjamin leaned in to whisper, You're a natural at this. I'm terrified, she admitted. You're not showing it. That's what matters. They were photographed, questioned by society reporters, watched by hundreds of curious eyes. Through it all, Gabrielle played her part perfectly. She laughed at appropriate moments, touched Benjamin's arm with casual affection, smiled until her cheeks ached. But when they finally escaped to a quiet balcony for fresh air, she sagged against the railing. This is exhausting, she breathed. You're doing amazing. Benjamin loosened his bow tie. I know it's a lot. Everyone keeps looking at us like they're trying to figure out if we're real. Let them wonder. That's part of the fun. He smiled. Besides, some of it is real, isn't it? We're friends. This isn't entirely fake. Gabrielle looked at him in the moonlight. He was right. Over the past weeks, they'd become genuine friends. They shared morning coffee, argued about movies, debated politics. He'd helped her start interviewing potential staff for the community center. She'd helped him negotiate a tricky business deal by offering a fresh perspective. You're right, she said. The friendship part is real. Good. Benjamin's expression was unreadable. I'm glad. The next event was a business dinner, less formal but more intense. Gabrielle wore emerald green, a color that made her feel powerful. She sat between Benjamin and a real estate developer who spent most of the meal explaining why her community center was a charity project that would never be sustainable. Actually, Gabrielle said, keeping her voice pleasant, community centers are quite sustainable when properly funded and managed. They reduce crime, increase property values, and provide economic development through job training. The ROI is long-term but substantial. The developer raised an eyebrow. You've done your research. I have. This isn't just a pet project. It's a sound investment in community infrastructure. Benjamin's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. When she glanced at him, he was trying not to smile. Later, in the car heading home, he said, You shut down Carlson completely. That was impressive. He was being condescending. He's always condescending. Most people just endure it. You put him in his place without being rude. Benjamin shook his head admiringly. Where did you learn to do that? 10 years in corporate America. You learn to handle egos or you don't survive. As weeks passed, their public relationship became more comfortable. They developed inside jokes, could read each other's moods, knew when the other needed rescuing from a boring conversation. The media ate it up, calling them the most unexpected love story of the year. Benjamin's parents remained frosty but civil. His mother, Eleanor, was a tall woman with perfect posture and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. His father, Richard, mostly grunted responses and checked his phone constantly. They'd agreed to a dinner at the family estate, a sprawling mansion in the suburbs that looked like it belonged in a period drama. Remember, Benjamin had coached during the drive, they're going to try to rattle you. Don't take it personally. It's a test. The dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as Gabrielle had anticipated. Eleanor asked pointed questions about her background, her education, her family. Richard interrogated her understanding of business and finance. Both watched her with the intensity of scientists studying a specimen. But Gabrielle held her own. When Eleanor questioned whether she understood the demands of Benjamin's position, Gabrielle smiled and said, "I understand that people are more than their positions. Benjamin is certainly more than just Hartwell Enterprises." Eleanor's eyes had narrowed. "Are you implying we don't see our son as a person?" "I'm saying I see all of him," Gabrielle replied calmly. "And I appreciate every part." The table fell silent. Then, surprisingly, Richard chuckled. "She's got spine," he said to Benjamin. "I'll give her that." On the drive home, Benjamin was quiet. Finally he said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For defending me. In front of them." "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. They were treating you like a business asset." Gabrielle looked out the window at the passing suburbs. "Besides, it's true. You are more than your company." "Sometimes I forget that." "Then I'll remind you." The most challenging event was a fundraiser gala where Helen would be in attendance. Patricia had warned them, prepared responses, but nothing quite prepared Gabrielle for seeing the woman Benjamin had almost married. Helen Bradford was beautiful in an ice sculpture way, perfect features, perfect hair, perfect posture. She wore white, naturally, and moved through the crowd like she owned it. When she approached them, Gabrielle felt Benjamin tense beside her. "Benjamin," Helen said, her voice cultured and cool. "And this must be Gabrielle. The famous Gabrielle." "Helen, you look well." Benjamin's tone was carefully neutral. "As do you both." Helen's eyes assessed Gabrielle with clinical precision. "I wanted to say there are no hard feelings. What happened was for the best." "I appreciate that," Benjamin said. "I hope you'll both be very happy." Helen's smile was small and controlled. "Gabrielle, take care of him. He has a tendency to get lost in his own head." Then she glided away, leaving Gabrielle slightly stunned. "That was," she began. "Weird," Benjamin supplied. "Civil, actually. I expected worse." Helen is nothing if not pragmatic. Public scenes aren't her style. He looked at Gabrielle seriously. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because meeting your fake boyfriend's real ex-fiancé is objectively strange." Gabrielle laughed, the tension breaking. "This whole situation is objectively strange. We're past the point of normal." They danced later, a slow song that required close contact. Benjamin was a good dancer, confident in his movements. As they swayed, his hand warm on her waist, Gabrielle found herself hyper-aware of every point of contact. "This is nice," he murmured. "The dancing? The everything. Having you here. Not doing this alone." "You're not alone," Gabrielle said softly. "For whatever that's worth." "It's worth everything." The moment felt too intimate, too real. Gabrielle forced herself to remember, this was pretend. A business arrangement. 3 months and then they'd part ways, her with a functioning community center and him with breathing room from his family. But as the song ended and Benjamin smiled down at her, his eyes warm and unguarded, Gabrielle felt the first crack in her careful walls. She was in danger of forgetting this wasn't real. And that, she knew, was a problem. The transformation of an abandoned warehouse into a community center required more work than Gabrielle had anticipated. She spent her days meeting with architects, contractors, and program directors, making decisions about everything from classroom sizes to kitchen equipment. Benjamin accompanied her to most meetings, offering business insight but always deferring to her vision. "This is your dream," he'd say whenever she asked his opinion. "I'm just the checkbook." "You're more than that," she'd reply and mean it. They'd been fake dating for 6 weeks when things started to shift. Small moments accumulated. Benjamin bringing her coffee before she'd even woken up, Gabrielle noticing he was stressed and making his favorite meal, the way they'd started finishing each other's sentences. One evening, standing in the shell of what would become the center's main hall, Gabrielle felt overwhelmed by the reality of it. "This is really happening," she said, voice thick with emotion. "A month ago I was facing eviction. Now I'm building something that will help hundreds of people." Benjamin stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking around at the space. "You're building something that will help thousands of people. This is just the beginning. Because of you. Because you had the courage to help a stranger in a confessional booth." He turned to her. "I've been thinking about that day a lot. How different my life would be if you'd walked away. If you hadn't cared about someone you didn't know." "I couldn't walk away. You looked like I felt trapped," Benjamin said. "Yes." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the late afternoon sun angle through the large windows. The space smelled of fresh paint and sawdust, full of potential. "Can I show you something?" Benjamin asked suddenly. "Sure." He led her to the car and they drove to the waterfront, to a park Gabrielle had never visited. A path wound along the water's edge, lined with benches and carefully tended gardens. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "I know we said no warm colors," Benjamin joked, "but I couldn't control the sunset." They walked slowly, watching boats drift by. Other couples strolled hand in hand, and for the first time, Gabrielle wished their own clasped hands were real rather than performative. "I used to come here as a kid," Benjamin said. "When family stuff got too intense, my grandmother would bring me. She'd say, 'Some problems feel smaller next to big water.' She sounds wonderful. She was the only person who ever asked what I wanted. Really asked, I mean. Everyone else just assumed they knew." Gabrielle understood that feeling intimately. "My mom was like that. She'd say, 'Baby girl, there are 1,000 roads to happy. You just have to find yours.'" "Did you? Find yours?" Gabrielle considered the question honestly. "I thought I had. Stable job, decent apartment, predictable life. But I think maybe I was confusing safety with happiness." They reached a bench overlooking the water and sat. The sun touched the horizon, and despite his joke about lighting, the moment felt perfect. "Gabrielle," Benjamin began, then stopped. Started again. "These past weeks have been complicated," she offered. "The opposite, actually. Uncomplicated. Easy. Real." He turned to face her. "Which is confusing because this is supposed to be fake." Gabrielle's heart stuttered. "Benjamin, I know we have rules. I know we agreed this was just a business arrangement. But somewhere between the charity galas and the construction meetings and the late-night documentaries, He took a breath. "I've developed real feelings for you." The words hung in the air between them. Gabrielle should pull back, remind him of their agreement, protect them both from complications. But she couldn't because the truth was she'd developed real feelings too. "I have to tell you something," she said quietly. "This started as gratitude. You saved me when I had nothing. But now I look forward to seeing you every morning. I notice when you're stressed before you say anything. I care about what makes you laugh. And when we're at events, holding hands for the cameras, part of me forgets we're pretending." Benjamin's expression shifted from nervous to hopeful. "So this isn't just me? It's not just you." They sat inches apart, the tension palpable. In the movies, this would be the moment for a kiss, dramatic and perfect. But real life was messier, more uncertain. "What do we do?" Benjamin asked. "I don't know. This could complicate everything. What happens when the 3 months are up? What happens if this doesn't work? What happens if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what if?" Benjamin countered. Gabrielle thought about all the rules she'd set, the walls she'd built to protect herself. But those walls hadn't made her happy. They'd made her safe, which wasn't the same thing at all. "We'd have to be honest with each other," she said finally. "Really honest. No hiding behind the pretend relationship. I can do that. And we take it slow. Figure out what's real and what's just proximity and convenience. Slow is good." They both smiled, the tension breaking into something warmer. "So we're doing this?" Gabrielle asked. "For real this time?" "For real," Benjamin confirmed. Then, softly, "Can I kiss you?" Gabrielle's breath caught. "Yes." He leaned in carefully, giving her time to change her mind. When his lips met hers, it was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Gabrielle answered by reaching up to cup his face, deepening the kiss slightly. When they pulled apart, Benjamin was grinning. "That was real," Gabrielle finished. "Very real." They sat together as the sun fully set, hands intertwined, talking about everything and nothing. They discussed their fears, their hopes, what a real relationship between them might look like. "My family will assume you're after my money," Benjamin warned. "Your family already assumes that," Gabrielle replied. "Let them think what they want. We know the truth. And if this doesn't work out? If we try and it's not right? Then we'll figure it out like adults. No drama, no blame. We part as friends who tried." Benjamin squeezed her hand. "I really don't want it to not work out." "Neither do I." They drove back to the penthouse, the energy between them different now. Charged but comfortable. When they reached the door, Benjamin paused. "I should probably not assume anything," he said. "Do you want your space tonight? I don't want to push." Gabrielle appreciated the consideration, but she also knew what she wanted. "How about we watch a documentary? On the couch. Like we always do. Except now we can actually sit close instead of maintaining appropriate distance. That sounds perfect. They changed into comfortable clothes and met in the living room. Benjamin put on a documentary about deep-sea creatures, and Gabrielle curled up against his side. His arm came around her shoulders naturally like it belonged there. Halfway through, Gabrielle said, "I'm scared." Of what? That this is too good. That something will ruin it. Benjamin pressed a kiss to her temple. Then we'll deal with it together. That's what partners do. Partners? Gabrielle tested the word. I like that. They fell asleep on the couch, the documentary playing to an empty room, both of them more content than either had been in years. When Gabrielle woke at dawn, still tucked against Benjamin's side, she felt something she'd almost forgotten: peace. This was real. Complicated and unexpected and slightly crazy, but real. And for the first time in a long time, she was excited to see what came next. The news that their relationship had become genuine should have been shocking to exactly no one, Patricia later said, because anyone with eyes could see you two were smitten. But telling people was still complicated. Benjamin's parents remained skeptical. Helen sent a terse congratulations text, and the media went into overdrive speculating about their whirlwind romance. But none of that mattered as much as the day the community center's construction finished. Gabrielle stood in the completed building, tears streaming down her face, taking in everything they'd created. The main hall had polished floors and large windows that flooded the space with natural light. The kitchen was commercial grade, ready to teach cooking classes and prepare meals. Classrooms lined one wing, already equipped with computers and learning materials. A gym occupied the basement with new equipment donated by local businesses. A library filled another room, shelves waiting for books. This is everything I imagined, Gabrielle whispered. And more. Benjamin stood beside her, his hand in hers. You did this. We did this. No. He turned her to face him. I wrote checks. You created a vision, fought for it, made it real. This is yours, Gabrielle. Own it. Over the next weeks, Gabrielle hired staff. A director who'd run youth programs for 20 years, teachers eager to work with adults seeking education, a cook who specialized in nutrition on a budget. She interviewed them all herself, looking for people who understood that this center wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline for the community. Benjamin attended some interviews, mostly staying quiet but asking surprisingly insightful questions. After one particularly difficult interview where a candidate clearly only wanted the paycheck, he'd whispered, "Pass." Agreed, Gabrielle had whispered back. They'd become a team in ways that went beyond romance. They understood each other's working styles, anticipated needs, filled in gaps. When Gabrielle got overwhelmed with details, Benjamin would step in with organizational skills. When Benjamin got too focused on budgets and logistics, Gabrielle would remind him of the human element. The day they decided to introduce Gabrielle to Benjamin's parents as his actual girlfriend, not just the fake one, felt monumental. They're not going to make this easy, Benjamin warned as they drove to the estate. When has anything with your family been easy? Fair point. Eleanor and Richard Hartwell received them in the formal living room, a space that felt more like a museum than a home. Eleanor wore pearls and judgment in equal measure. Richard looked up from his tablet long enough to grunt a greeting. Mother, Dad, Benjamin began, his hand finding Gabrielle's for strength. I wanted to talk to you about Gabrielle and me. The fake relationship that became real? Eleanor said coolly. Your publicist informed us weeks ago. You knew? Gabrielle asked, surprised. We're not idiots, Miss Thompson. Eleanor sipped her tea with precision. The question isn't whether you're genuinely together. The question is what you want from our son. Mom, Benjamin's voice was sharp. Don't. But Gabrielle squeezed his hand, letting him know she could handle this. Mrs. Hartwell, I understand your skepticism. From your perspective, I appeared out of nowhere when Benjamin was vulnerable. But I'm not with him for his money. I'm with him because he's kind, intelligent, and genuinely cares about making a difference. He sees me as a person, not a function. And I see him the same way. Lovely speech, Eleanor said. But actions matter more than words. Then judge my actions. I'm building a community center to help people who need support. I work every day to make that vision real. I encourage Benjamin to pursue what makes him happy, even when it goes against family expectations. I'm not here to take anything from him. I'm here to build a life with him. Richard set down his tablet, actually paying attention for once. The community center. That's in the Riverside district. Yes. That area has been declining for years. Crime rates up, property values down. He studied her. You think one community center will change that? I think one community center is a start. And yes, I think providing education, job training, and safe spaces for kids will absolutely impact crime rates and property values. It won't happen overnight, but long-term? Absolutely. Something shifted in Richard's expression. You've done economic impact studies? Extensively. I can send you the data if you're interested. I am interested. Eleanor looked between them, clearly annoyed that her husband was engaging. Richard, we're discussing their relationship, not urban planning. Actually, dear, we're discussing whether Gabrielle is serious about improving lives or just playing at charity to impress our son. He turned back to Gabrielle. Send me your data. If it's as solid as you claim, Hartwell Enterprises might be interested in funding expansion. Gabrielle's jaw nearly dropped. You'd fund expansion? If the numbers make sense, yes. We're a business, not a charity. But businesses that invest in community development often see long-term returns. Richard almost smiled. You might be more like us than you think, Miss Thompson. I'll take that as a compliment, Gabrielle said carefully. After they left, driving back toward the city, Benjamin was quiet. Finally, he said, My father wants to fund your expansion. I'm as shocked as you are. He never does anything that isn't calculated. Benjamin glanced at her. He's testing you. If you succeed, you prove you're serious. If you fail, he can say he was right to doubt you. Then I won't fail. Benjamin laughed, genuine and delighted. I love how you just decide something and make it happen. I learned from watching you escape your own wedding. They spent the evening compiling data for Richard, working side by side at the dining table. Around midnight, surrounded by spreadsheets and economic reports, Benjamin said, This is my favorite version of us. Working on boring data? Working together on something that matters. Feeling like we're actually making a difference. He pushed aside a laptop to take her hands. I know we've only been really together for a few weeks. But this feels right. You feel right. Gabrielle's heart swelled. You feel right too. Good. Because I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air, huge and terrifying and wonderful. Benjamin? You don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know. But Gabrielle realized she did want to say it back. Somewhere between the confessional booth and this moment, between fake dates and real conversations, she'd fallen too. I'm falling in love with you too, she said softly. They kissed across the table, knocking over a stack of papers neither of them cared about in that moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Should we celebrate? Benjamin asked. We should finish this data. Your father isn't going to fund expansion on feelings. Practical and romantic. How did I get so lucky? They worked until 2 in the morning, fueled by coffee and the electric feeling of building something together. When they finally stumbled to bed, exhausted but satisfied, Gabrielle lay awake for a few extra minutes, marveling at how much her life had changed. 3 months ago, she'd been desperate and alone, hiding in a confessional booth. Now she was in love, building her dream, and partnering with someone who saw her value beyond what she could provide. Sometimes she thought as sleep claimed her, the wrong door leads to exactly the right place. The grand opening gala for the Thompson Community Center, Benjamin had insisted on naming it after her, was scheduled for a Saturday in late autumn. Invitations had gone out to donors, community members, local officials, and media outlets. The building gleamed with fresh paint and possibility. Gabrielle wore royal blue, a dress that Patricia had commissioned specially for the occasion. It was elegant without being pretentious, the kind of dress that said, I belong here, without demanding attention. Benjamin wore a classic charcoal suit with a blue tie that matched her dress, a detail that made Gabrielle smile. We match, she'd said when he'd emerged from his room. That was the idea. He'd kissed her gently. You ready for this? Terrified and excited in equal measure. Perfect combination. The gala began at 6. By 5:45, Gabrielle was pacing the center's main hall, checking details obsessively. Flowers arranged correctly? Check. Catering set up? Check. AV equipment working for her speech? Check. Breathe, Benjamin said, catching her mid-pace. Everything is perfect. What if no one shows up? What if people show up and hate it? What if? He kissed her, stopping the spiral. What if everyone shows up and loves it and your dream becomes reality? That's terrifying too. I know. But I'll be right there with you. Guests began arriving promptly at 6. First came community members, families who'd been promised programs and services, their faces hopeful and curious. Then donors, dressed in varying degrees of formality, eyes assessing the space they'd helped fund. Local officials arrived with photographers, ready for photo opportunities. And then, surprisingly, Helen Bradford walked in with a distinguished man Gabrielle didn't recognize. "Helen," Benjamin said, surprised. "I didn't know you were coming." "I received an invitation," Helen replied coolly. "This is Dr. Marcus Stevens. He runs a foundation focused on urban development. I thought you two should meet." She moved on before they could respond, leaving Gabrielle stunned. "Did she just help us?" Gabrielle asked. "I think she did," Benjamin said, equally baffled. "Maybe she's not as vindictive as I feared." Patricia appeared at Gabrielle's elbow. "5 minutes until your speech. You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The crowd assembled in the main hall, hundreds of people filling the space. Gabrielle stepped up to the microphone, her hands trembling slightly. Benjamin stood to the side, his presence grounding her. "Good evening," she began, her voice stronger than she felt. "Thank you all for being here tonight. 3 months ago, this building was an abandoned warehouse. Today it's a promise. A promise to kids who need safe places to learn and grow. A promise to adults who deserve second chances and new skills. A promise to a community that this city hasn't forgotten you." She paused, letting the words settle. "I'm not going to tell you this center will solve every problem. It won't. But it's a beginning. A place where hope is tangible, where dreams have resources, where people matter more than profit margins." She caught Benjamin's eye, drew strength from his proud smile. "This center exists because of extraordinary generosity." Benjamin Hartwell believed in this vision when it was just an idea spoken in desperation. He funded it not for recognition or tax breaks, but because he genuinely cares about making things better. Benjamin looked uncomfortable with the attention, which only made Gabrielle love him more. "But this center also exists because of this community. Because you showed up to planning meetings. Because you volunteered time and expertise. Because you believed a different future was possible." She gestured around the space. "This is yours. All of yours. Use it well." The applause was thunderous. People stood, cheering, some wiping away tears. Gabrielle felt her own eyes water as the reality hit her. She'd actually done this. The rest of the evening was a blur. She gave tours, answered questions, accepted congratulations from what felt like hundreds of people. Dr. Stevens cornered her to discuss research partnerships. Richard Hartwell, surprisingly present, handed her a business card. "Your expansion proposal was solid," he said gruffly. "Call me Monday. We'll discuss phase 2. When things finally quieted around 10, Gabrielle found Benjamin on the roof deck, a space they'd created for quiet reflection. He was leaning on the railing looking at the city lights. "Hey," she said softly, joining him. "You disappeared. Needed a minute." That was intense. Good intense or bad intense? Best intense. He turned to her, eyes shining with something that looked suspiciously like tears. "Do you have any idea how incredible you are? That speech. The way you commanded that room. You were born for this." "I was terrified." "You were magnificent." He pulled her close. "I am so proud of you I could burst." They stood together, watching the neighborhood they'd invested in. Below, people were still leaving the center, conversations animated and hopeful. "We did something good here," Gabrielle said. "You did something good here. I just enabled it." "We're a team," she corrected. "Partners, remember?" "Partners," Benjamin agreed. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "There's something I need to tell you." Gabrielle's stomach tightened. "That sounds serious." "It's not bad. At least, I hope you won't think it's bad." He turned to face her fully. "I've been talking to my lawyer about restructuring my role at Hartwell Enterprises. Stepping back from day-to-day operations, focusing more on projects like this. Community development, social impact investing, things that actually matter." "That's wonderful," Gabrielle said, confused about why he seemed nervous. "The thing is, doing that means disappointing my family. Again. It means going against expectations. Again. And I want to make sure." He took a breath. "I want to make sure you're okay with being with someone who's perpetually disappointing his family." Gabrielle laughed, relief flooding through her. "Benjamin, I fell in love with the man who hid in a confessional booth to escape expectations. Did you think I'd suddenly want you to conform? I just wanted to check. I'm with you because you're brave enough to choose your own path. That's not disappointing. That's inspiring." Benjamin's expression softened. "How are you always exactly what I need to hear?" "Same way you're always exactly what I need." We got lucky. They kissed under the stars, the city their witness, the future stretching out before them with possibility. Below, the Thompson Community Center stood bright and proud, a testament to what two people could build when they chose hope over fear, kindness over calculation, and love over expectation. 3 months after the gala, the center had enrolled over 300 participants in various programs. Kids attended after-school tutoring. Adults learned job skills in welding, programming, and culinary arts. The nutrition program served 200 meals a week. The space hummed with life and purpose. Gabrielle walked through it every day, still amazed this was real. She'd hired a talented young woman named Tasha as assistant director, giving herself breathing room to plan expansion. Richard Hartwell had been true to his word. Hartwell Enterprises was funding a second center in another underserved neighborhood. The paperwork was already in motion. Benjamin had officially stepped back from Hartwell Enterprises leadership, taking a board position but removing himself from daily operations. His parents had been predictably furious until the media started praising his philanthropic focus. Then they grudgingly admitted it was good for the family image. "They still don't get it," Benjamin had said. "But I've stopped expecting them to." He'd been spending more time at the center, teaching a business skills class one evening a week. Watching him work with students, patient and encouraging, made Gabrielle fall in love with him all over again. One evening, after her class had ended and the building was emptying for the night, Gabrielle found Benjamin sitting in the main hall, just watching people leave. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, settling beside him. "How different my life is now. How different I am." He took her hand. 6 months ago, I was about to marry someone I didn't love to satisfy expectations I didn't agree with. Now I'm teaching resume writing to ex-convicts trying to rebuild their lives, and I've never been happier. You're a good teacher. I'm a work in progress. He stood, pulling her up with him. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." He led her to the roof deck, where the city lights sparkled like earthbound stars. On the deck table sat a box, simple and unadorned. "What's this?" Gabrielle asked. "Open it." Inside was a key, brass and slightly tarnished, clearly old. Attached to it was a note in Benjamin's handwriting, "To new doors and new beginnings." "I don't understand," Gabrielle said, though her heart was starting to race. "That key belonged to my grandmother. She gave it to me the year before she died, told me it was from her first apartment, the place where she learned she could make her own choices." He took the key from Gabrielle's hand. "She said when I found someone who made me brave enough to choose my own path, I should give them this key. A reminder that the best decisions are the ones we make for ourselves." Tears pricked Gabrielle's eyes. "Benjamin, you made me brave, Gabrielle. Every single day, you show me what it means to choose love and hope even when it's hard. You walked into that confessional booth expecting a priest and found a coward hiding from his own life. But you didn't judge me. You helped me. And in helping me, you saved me." He got down on one knee and Gabrielle's breath stopped. "I know we've only been really together for a few months. I know some people will say this is too fast, too impulsive. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life building dreams with you, fighting for communities with you, choosing bravery with you." He pulled out a ring, simple and perfect, a single diamond set in platinum. "Gabrielle Thompson, will you marry me?" Gabrielle didn't hesitate. "Yes. Yes." Benjamin asked like he couldn't quite believe it. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her, deep and passionate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were crying and laughing at once. "I love you," Benjamin said. "I'm going to spend forever proving how much. I love you too. And you don't have to prove anything. You already showed me everything that matters." They held each other on the roof as the city breathed around them, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and chosen to build something beautiful from that unexpected meeting. The Thompson Community Center stood below them, lights still on in a few classrooms where late programs ran. Somewhere in those rooms, people were learning skills that would change their lives. Kids were discovering books they'd never seen before. Adults were finding second chances they'd thought were impossible. All because two strangers had been brave enough to help each other when it mattered most. They got married 3 months later, in the very place where their journey had truly begun, the community center's main hall. No society wedding, no elaborate ceremony that cost more than most people earned in a year. Just a simple gathering of people who mattered. Jessica stood as Gabrielle's maid of honor, still occasionally muttering about how crazy this whole story was. Lauren, Benjamin's assistant, was a bridesmaid, having become a genuine friend during the chaos. Tasha, the assistant director, read a poem about new beginnings. Benjamin's parents attended, sitting stiffly in the front row. But his father had contributed a sizable donation to the center, which Gabrielle counted as progress. His mother had even smiled briefly when Benjamin had teared up watching Gabrielle walk down the aisle. Helen sent a beautiful flower arrangement with a note, "To brave choices and genuine happiness." The ceremony was short, officiated by a judge who'd been instrumental in getting permits for the center's construction. When it came time for vows, Gabrielle spoke from her heart. "Benjamin, you taught me that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is accept help when it's offered. That kindness isn't weakness and hope isn't foolish. You've shown me what it means to build a life based on what matters, not what's expected. I promise to keep reminding you that you're more than your family name. You're the man who chose love over obligation, community over profit, and truth over convenience. I'm honored to build the rest of our life with you." Benjamin's vows were equally heartfelt. "Gabrielle, you saved my life in that confessional booth. Not just from a bad marriage but from a future where I'd forgotten how to choose anything for myself. You've taught me that dreams are worth fighting for, that community matters more than corporations, and that love is the most practical thing we can invest in. I promise to support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported mine. I promise to choose bravery even when it's hard. And I promise to love you with everything I have, every single day for the rest of our lives." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when the judge pronounced them married. The reception was held right there in the center, catered by students from the culinary program. Kids from the after-school program performed a dance they'd choreographed. Adults from the job training classes gave toasts about hope and second chances. As Gabrielle and Benjamin danced their first dance to a song performed live by a local musician who taught guitar at the center, she felt the weight of how far they'd both come. "What are you thinking?" Benjamin asked, sensing her contemplation. "That this is perfect. That I wouldn't change a single thing about how we got here. Not even the terrifying part where you were about to be evicted? Not even that. Because that's what led me to that church, to that confessional, to you." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Everything that hurt led to everything that healed. I like that philosophy." They swayed together, surrounded by people whose lives they'd touched and who'd touched theirs. The community they'd built, both in the center and in their relationship. As the song ended, Benjamin spun her out and back in, both of them laughing. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities. More centers to build, more communities to serve, more dreams to chase together. But in that moment, they were just two people who'd found each other at exactly the right time, in exactly the right place, even if that place was a confessional booth in a church where neither of them was supposed to be. "Ready for forever?" Benjamin whispered. "With you?" "Absolutely." 6 months later, a letter arrived at the penthouse, hand-delivered by courier. The return address was a law office in Boston. Benjamin opened it while Gabrielle was reviewing blueprints for the third community center. "This is interesting," he said, scanning the contents. "What? Remember my grandmother? The one whose key I gave you?" "Of course. Apparently she left a trust fund. Not for me, for whoever I married. On the condition that the money be used for building communities and creating spaces where people can choose their own paths." Benjamin looked up, stunned. "It's $3 million. Gabrielle's hands stilled on the blueprints. "She what?" "The lawyer says she amended her will 5 years ago, right before she died. She wanted to make sure whoever I married understood what mattered." He laughed, incredulous. "My grandmother is funding our expansion from beyond the grave. She sounds like she would have liked me. She would have loved you." They used the money to create the Hartwell Thompson Foundation, dedicated to community development and social impact investing. Within a year, they'd opened 2 more centers and funded a dozen grassroots projects across the city. Benjamin transitioned fully out of Hartwell Enterprises, dedicating himself to the foundation. His parents had long since given up trying to change his mind, eventually admitting, in their cold way, that what he was doing mattered. Gabrielle became a nationally recognized voice on community development, speaking at conferences and advising other cities on replication models. She never forgot where she'd come from, always making time to teach classes at the original center. They lived simply despite the wealth available to them. The penthouse became a gathering place for staff meetings and planning sessions. Their life was full of work that mattered, people they cared about, and love that grew stronger with each challenge they faced together. And sometimes, late at night, Gabrielle would take out that old brass key, the one from Benjamin's grandmother, and remember the day she'd pushed open the wrong door and found exactly the right person. Because sometimes the wrong door leads to the right life. Sometimes a mistake is actually a miracle. And sometimes kindness, hope, and love are enough to build not just a community center, but an entire life worth living.